So I'm learning a lot about myself and my gift that I bring to the world and to clients and to the people I serve. And this episode that I was planning originally was supposed to be kind of a deep dive on the liver, but every time I went to go do it, it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't landing in the potency I wanted it to land in. And so I decided to take a break and understand what was I missing. And I realized for myself when I plan a topic in advance, that might not be the thing that is just absolutely lighting up my world right now that I am passionate and fired up to talk about. So I planned this liver episode a while back because the liver is so important. It plays such a big role in our healing and it's often very overlooked by your doctor. Please don't mind the old men walking behind my window. That's not important if you are on the video. But the liver is a really important thing. But my gift isn't necessarily teaching you about the liver and detox pathways and methylation and all of these really in-depth physiological processes. So as I was sitting on what's lighting up my world right now, what do I want you to know and learn and understand about the liver? How do I bring in herbs? Because at the end of the day, this is anchored on being an herbal podcast. And how do I make it land in a way that's fun for me and brings my gifts to you? So I started thinking about all this and I really realized that there's something I want to be said and to be connected from you, the listener, about your symptoms and what might be driving them. But there's also this piece of what's going on in my world that I really feel needs to be talked about. So we're going to bridge a couple worlds today and see how this plays out and lands. So we will still anchor and talk about the liver because it is a very important organ to how we process emotions, how we process food, how we process blood and nutrients. It is just vital and underlying so many of the modern issues I'm seeing. But we're also going to talk about this spiritual side of healing. A concept came up for me the other day about the body's veto. And the concept was basically a little bit twofold. One, our body might keep us stuck out of safety. So our body might make the decision to keep us in illness because it is safer. It is a known quantity. And when we are in illness, we're not moving, we're not making changes, all of these things that are threatening to the mind. So we have this aspect of the body's veto where our mind is keeping us stuck through physical manifestations. But then we have this other side of if we are not moving, if our psyche knows something's out of alignment and we're not actioning on it, we're not leaving that job, leaving that partner, changing our living situation, if we are stuck living a life that is not for us, our body will intervene. And I believe that there is a spiritual component behind big events that happen in our lives. We're talking strokes or cardiovascular events or cancer diagnoses. Our body will nudge us if we are not listening. And an example of this is I know a person who was working a job that was not serving him emotionally, physically, or spiritually. There was a very long commute involved. There was a lot of tension and turmoil with his boss. He was definitely working below his potential. And all of these things were affecting him in his daily life, but he was too stuck to do anything about it. And events would happen to push him out of that job and he wouldn't listen. He wouldn't listen and he wouldn't listen until eventually his health took such a turn that within a matter of a week, he was fully functioning and participating and contributing and showing up to work. And by the end of that week, he was in a hospital and his body was going into shutdown mode. And to me, while there was physiological things happening in the body, that shutdown mode was a product of not listening and the body intervening for him. And a lot of us may experience this because the body knows before we do if something is right or wrong for us. And our body eventually will step in if we are continually living in a situation that's not serving us. So something I see in a lot of my clients with migraines is an interpole, not an interpole, an inner pole, a conflict between the head and the heart that is painful and manifesting as something really real happening in their body, but the source of it is from inner confliction of, I don't know what to listen to, my mind or my heart. So this concept of the body playing this role, this spiritual component coming in, has really been just continually coming up in my purview. But as I work and move through more complex clients with chronic things, my gift to them is that I help them connect dots for themselves. I help give them tools, I help them tune in, I help them understand themselves better, understand their symptoms better so they can move past it. That is the gift I bring. And as I do this work, I really continually see, as woo-woo as it sounds, that the things people experience are reinforced by other aspects of their life. It's not random. It's all connected. What we eat, what we don't eat, what we do to nourish ourselves, what we don't do, our environment, our relationships, our jobs. Are we showing up in the world? Are we showing up in the world with joy and light and love? Are we bringing our gifts fully forward? Because if we're not, that will manifest in how we feel on a daily basis. So as we are going to talk a little bit more about the liver here, I want to just kind of bridge all this together in a real physiological way backed up by an organ system. So that organ system is going to be the liver. But I want you to sit with an openness of where in your life might be causing you to not show up or feel your best. Are you in a situation that isn't serving you? Are you in an environment that makes it hard for you to nourish your body or work out or tend to yourself in the way that you want to or know you should be tending to yourself? Are you not following that dream? Are you just setting your dreams aside for someone else? Like, where are you at in life? And if you get really honest and raw with yourself, what is it contributing to how you feel? Now, the beautiful thing, because this is an herb podcast and I was just joking in my head on the way to start recording this, is I don't always bring it back to specific herbs, but I think herbs are one of the most beautiful ways to support these processes because they do two things. One, they help us on a physiological level. They do more than two things. Hold on, let me expand that list. They help us on a physiological level, but they also help us on an emotional, a spiritual, and an energetic level. But the simple act of getting help, the simple act of taking time to take herbs every day and put them in your body in itself is healing. So everything I do, my call in life, while I pull from different tools, comes back to how do we get back to ourselves? How do we get back in tune to nature? How do we best service ourselves? Herbs are continually the conduit on multiple levels. So this is an herbal podcast. That is a core piece of what I do and what I bring to the world. And we are going to dive into this more. Oh my God, I hate my life. I was going to record this in my office and I was not hitting it. Just like the inspiration was not happening in my office. So I came home to make lunch and the spark of inspiration was there. And of course I go to record it and then there's all these things happening around me and behind me that are contributing to distractions here. But let's start talking about the liver, because the liver is one of the most fascinating organs in the body to me. It is an absolute workhorse of an organ. And it is so overlooked by your medical doctor. Like, the medical model does not have space to support the liver in a way that makes a difference in your daily symptoms. So the liver, it's responsible for over 500 important processes in the body, from the way that we utilize and store nutrients to the way that we metabolize protein or sugar, or how it gets rid of the toxins in our body or removes excess hormones. It helps the immune system. It does a lot in our body. And for whatever reason, it was designed with some anatomical flaws. So the liver is a very hot organ that's very prone to congestion. Think about a freeway that's like a one-lane freeway. that turns into a 12-lane freeway and then back into a 1-lane freeway. That is happening with the veins in our liver. We have this big old portal vein that goes into our liver. It turns into a bunch of little veins and then back into one big vein. And if you've ever driven a car, you know that that is like congestion city. So the liver, the energy that the liver should be processing for our body gets backed up, and that energy is hot. So that hot, windy energy gets moved upwards in the body when it should be moving downwards, and that leads to all kinds of symptoms that we experience. Like maybe we have acne or insomnia, or we are early graying and our hair is thinning. Maybe it's tinnitus in the ears. Actually, it's pronounced tinnitus, but nobody says it that way, so I'm going to say tinnitus. Maybe it is with our eyesight degrading or our sense of taste and smell going. The liver heat plays a role. And I will note that the wind coming off of the liver isn't always hot. We can have wind in our head from the liver that isn't hot wind. So this concept of wind and liver fire rising and hot wind, this is all metaphor. So what you need to understand about systems like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda is that they work in metaphors. And if you stay within the metaphors, it makes sense. If you try to make the metaphors make sense from your Western perspective, your modern medicine perspective, they don't always make sense. So traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda are energetic systems. So things like the liver is hot, or we have energy moving in a certain direction, is how we learn to restore balance in the body, which is foreign to a lot of people and a lot of concepts. But this liver pattern is so prevalent that it's worth knowing and taking a moment to try to digest this, because it affects so many different symptoms in the body. So we could talk about something like insomnia, migraines, anxiety. Like, let's take that picture for a moment. That picture usually involves wind in the head, or we might say in Ayurveda, there's like vitiated vata in the head. Energy that should be moving down is stuck in our head. And that, in those examples, isn't hot energy. So I just wanted to make that distinction. And if you're watching the video, I am back in my office. The little Mickles around me were distracting, and so I paused the recording and am picking it up now again in my office, trying to remember where we left off, so bear with me. Really, I gotta record when inspiration strikes, and it's not always at the most convenient times, so yay me. So the other piece of the liver puzzle, and I keep rolling this around in my head. Like, if you go to the dermatologist and you have skin issues, they're never going to ask about your liver. If you go to the optometrist and you have eye issues, they're never going to ask about the liver. There are so many other specialists and players involved in the medical system that do not get to address how interconnected everything is. And to me, the liver is one of the things that plays an absolutely central role. A lot of people in again, modern medicine are in silos, and they don't get to see how woven and interconnected everything is like I do. So the reason I specifically brought up the optometrist and the dermatologist is our body works in a survival priority order. That means the organ that is most important to your survival will get its nutrients first. And the liver, the skin, and the eyes all share and pull from the same nutrients. They all need the same nutrients to do their thing. So our liver is going to get that nutrients first. And once our liver is good, nutrients will flow up to our skin. Once our skin's good, nutrients will flow up to our eyes. Eye issues, think macular degeneration, think declining eyesight. All things that happen with our eyes are receptive to natural healing methods, very receptive. But the thing is, it takes a long time to see results and to move the needle, because the liver gets nutrients first. And our liver has to be dialed in before the skin is going to then get its nutrients, and then that nutrients will eventually flow up to the eyes. Because out of those three organs, the liver is the most important, followed by the skin, followed by our eyesight. And understanding the priority survival order of our organs is really important. We should probably talk about it more sometimes, because it can also account for reproductive issues and digestive issues and other functionality our body stops giving resources to when it's under stress or it doesn't have enough. So we'll definitely dive into that another day. But I want to start tying this back a little bit to the earlier conversation we were having, and that is this more emotional or energetic or spiritual side of healing. So the liver, as it does all these things, really at the end of the day, it helps to regulate the flow of energy in our body. So think about waste moving out of our body. Like waste needs to move down and out of our body. And if things are not moving, flowing, getting processed like they need to, then we get stuck, we get stagnation. We might see this in areas of our life. There's so many people that just feel like overwhelmed, overburdened, and stuck right now. And to me, this mirrors what's happening in our bodies and happening with our livers. So the liver so in traditional Chinese medicine, organ systems correlate to certain emotions. And the liver is correlated to anger, irritation, and reactivity. But it also contributes to feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, and stuckness. So all of these happen, right, when things aren't getting processed or moving through like they need to. When the liver is congested, we get overburdened so easily. Personal story, a couple years ago, I had a brutal panic attack, and anxiety is a lifelong pattern for me since I was a little kid. But I really, over maybe the last 5 years of my life, don't feel like it's been there like it has. I don't consider myself anxious anymore. And so when I had a panic attack a couple years ago, I was like, what's happening? It didn't feel like me. That didn't feel like the space I lived in anymore. And I really quickly made the connection that right before the panic attack, I went in someone's car that was just like, whoo, just like somebody dropped a Bath and Body Works perfume bottle in there. And that perfume that's filled with chemicals and fragrances and unnatural artificial scents overburdened my body. For whatever reason, at that moment in time, my cup was probably already full, and that scent pushed me to the point of overwhelm. And that overwhelm and shutdown mode was a panic attack. And this relates to the liver because anything that comes into our purview, anything that comes into our body has to be processed. So that smell that was coming from the perfume had to be processed. Who's doing that processing? It's my liver. And my liver, for whatever reasons, was already in a state where it was probably at its max. It had enough to do. It was like, I don't want any more work. And it didn't have the resources to process that perfume, which is never good for me. But, not everybody who comes into perfume contact has a panic attack. So that's unique to me and my imbalances at the time. So that new input came in and that flipped the switch. So the liver really, while it impacts so many physiological processes in our body, and I don't care like what symptoms you come with, like the liver should be assessed to see if it's contributing. It also really impacts how we feel and how we're able to show up every day. If you feel like you really want to do something, but you just can't get yourself to do it, you're stuck. Moving energy through your liver might help. It might be the thing that gets things flowing in your physical body where your other layers to yourself can follow. If you're feeling overwhelmed, take the burden off of your system. Support your liver. If life is feeling hard and we are feeling overwhelmed, how do we open up more capacity? The liver plays a role. If we are not sitting with and processing our emotions, if emotions are getting stuck in us and that big old processing organ isn't being supported like it needs to be supported, how do we start moving emotions through? We start working on the liver. And this is how it comes back to herbs. Whatever we're feeling, whatever symptoms we deal with, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, cardiovascular issues, mood issues, female issues, imbalances in hormones, digestive issues, inflammatory skin issues, the liver is going to be a participant and something that we need to pay attention to. And when we sit and we dig deeper, we understand the connection that the liver, our physical symptoms, and how we're feeling about our life interplay. Because again, it is all connected. And it's all connected in such like a simple yet beautifully complex way. And having the opportunity to help people start making these connections and understand them is seriously like a magical place to get a sit in. As we sit with this, and I hope it's all kind of like coming together and landing, my disjointed recording isn't helping, but so as you move through your life and everything you're trying to accomplish, I want you to learn to love and support your liver because it is such an imperative organ. And you having even just this little understanding from listening today is going to help you start tuning in and seeing where you might be overwhelming it, where you might not be bringing in enough nourishment or support for it, where you might be able to take the burden off of yourself and off of this organ so your life feels easier. So we talked about some of the symptoms connected to the liver, right? So if somebody is coming to me with anything inflammatory, any inflammatory skin conditions, anything going on above the head and shoulders. So migraines, insomnia, early graying, balding, eyesight issues, smell issues, taste issues, ringing in the ear, I'm going to look at the liver. Anytime we have menstrual issues, anytime we have hormonal imbalances, anytime we have digestive issues, the liver is going to be implicated and needs to be looked at. Anytime that we have blood sugar imbalances or fat metabolism issues or protein isn't landing for us, we are going to look at the liver. The liver may also play a role in pain. If everything is being blocked up by the body and we have this toxic burden or overload that's increasing, the liver could be implicated. So those are the symptoms, or, a handful of the symptoms. I'm also going to just throw in anxiety, irritability, anger, frustration to that mix. So I want you to just know like the full spectrum of things the liver touches. Really funny side story. One of the very first clients I worked with, he had like road rage. Like just he would get so upset and frustrated and just irritable in traffic. And we started doing some liver supported things and we started doing some anti-inflammatory things and like cooling this heat in his body. And it wasn't the aim of his protocol, but a byproduct was he stopped feeling road rage. And all of a sudden he's like, I'm like calmer and more centered and I can drive through traffic and it doesn't impact me. And I'm like, hell yeah, we just took a burden off your body. We just made this part of your body less hot and reactive. Of course, that's going to manifest in how you're able to interact with the world. So I thought that was really cool just to see again that connection between supporting the physical body and what happens in the rest of our lives. So the liver, connected to a lot of symptoms, connected to a lot of processes in the body. Let's talk about what burdens the liver, because what burdens the liver burdens you. And the things that burden the liver are excess sugar is very impactful for the liver. So most sweet, sugary things have a mix of glucose and fructose. Glucose is instantly entered into the bloodstream and it's usable energy. Fructose has to be converted by the liver into glucose before it can be used. So the more sugar we eat, the more processing our liver is going to have to do. Think about it. Your liver already has a full-time job, and any extra work we're putting on it is going to stress it out. It's going to overwhelm it, and it's not going to have the resources it needs to keep up. So sugar, it impacts the liver. It gives the liver work to do. Excess sugar is going to be a burden. Ultra-processed foods are going to be a burden. Anything that's inflaming the body or causing extra metabolic waste is going to be a burden on the liver. Alcohol, obviously, certain drugs or medications that have to be metabolized by the liver, caffeine that has to be metabolized by the liver are going to add to the burden. And one of the biggest things is our environmental factors. What's going on in our environment? What are we exposing ourselves to? So that's the pesticides on our food. That's the artificial scents in the paraffin candles we're burning. It's the gas that's off-gassed from the homes we live in. It's all of those things that our body then has to deal with. Again, anything we come in contact with has to be processed, and anything that is foreign or our body doesn't understand or is toxic to the body is going to add a load to the liver. Most people in America have some degree of liver dysfunction. That doesn't mean that they're in a disease state. That doesn't mean it's, cirrhosis or fatty liver disease or hepatitis. It means that the liver isn't able to optimally do its job. And part of that is these burdens that we just keep layering on, right? Like our food supply is getting more and more foreign. The artificial that's coming in is getting more and more prevalent, and that's impacting the liver. And then on the other side of this is we are not bringing in enough nutrients into our diets for the liver to do what it needs to do. The liver needs certain vitamins and minerals to do its job. And if it doesn't have enough of that, it can't keep up with the load. And one other piece of that puzzle is the liver likes the bitter taste, the bitter flavor in foods. But most people have fallen out of practice of eating bitter tasting foods. We instead move towards hyperpalatable foods. So that's sugars and carbohydrates and proteins and fats. Like we are not necessarily craving dandelion and mustard greens and Swiss chard and arugula, but those bitter flavors are detoxifying to our body. They help our liver do its detoxifying functions and are really, really important and beneficial. So if you have any of those symptoms, it doesn't necessarily mean that I want you to go out and do a bunch of things to fix your liver. I still think that all of this needs to be addressed in a holistic way, looking at the whole person and figuring out where the best entry point is. But the things that are going to help support your liver and in turn help support you live a better life are going to be more bitter foods, taproot vegetables. Think burdock root, rutabaga, parsnips, carrots, turnips, and beets. Beets are so good for the liver. We're also, going to want to use liver supporting herbs. So again, those are herbs that are going to be bitter. It's also herbs that are in the hepatic category or cholagogues or choleretic or hepatoprotectants. Those are all different herbal actions that support the liver. So bringing in those are going to be beneficial. Dandelion root is a really good one that, people can bring in without problem. Artichoke is another one. Bringing in dandelion greens is going to be beneficial too because it has that really bitter taste. One of my favorite herbs, Ayurveda, is an herb called Bhumi Amlaki. The liver herbs tend to be a little bit nauseating, so that one's really good because it's pretty well tolerated. I also really use a lot of bupleurum in my practice, which is another liver herb from Chinese medicine that harmonizes and it helps us process. It helps us move things through in a unique way. Some other things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stay hydrated because that just helps all the functions in your body run better. You're going to want to use lemon zest. Lemon zest has a constituent called limonene that is detoxifying and helpful to the liver. Blueberries, anti-inflammatories, things with a lot of antioxidants are going to be beneficial for the liver. Correcting nutrient status, beneficial. Processing and sitting with your emotions, trying to regulate your nervous system and get it out of a stressed state are all going to be beneficial for the liver. So we're merging two concepts here, right? Like we have this physical organ that is responsible in part for our physical symptoms, but we also have this layer of when we support this physical part in ourselves, we can do and show up better in the world. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling just overwhelmed with life, if things are not flowing, if things are not being processed, we're not sleeping right, if things are just disturbed, giving your liver some love is most likely going to be beneficial. What are you doing in your daily life to support your body and make sure it has all the tools it needs to support you? I think bitters, vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, beets, lemon water, things like this should be a daily part of most of our lives. So what can you do? What can you start taking away to love your liver better? And I really just want to iterate, like tuning into the feeling of what's in my environment, what's in my life, and how is it impacting me? Because you will start making connections and you will start understanding without, again, even having to move into the complexity of all these things that one, it's all connected. And two, if you just start tuning into what feels good and what doesn't, you are doing the work. You will come back into balance the more that you can tune in to that information. If I walk in a room and I smell a candle and it gives me a headache, I'm going to think twice before I light that candle again. If I am sitting in traffic and I am irritable and I can't handle it, one, I'm going to try to reduce the amount of traffic I'm sitting in, but two, I'm going to try and reduce the burden on my body so life doesn't feel so intense to me, that I can handle it with a little bit more space between me and what's happening. The liver is just one of many, many very important organs and processes in the body, but I do think that it needs more conversation around it because it's so overlooked in so many complex issues. So I hope that all of this came together for you and you were able to get something useful here. I hope you take away 2 or 3 suggestions and you go love your liver after this. One more I will add that I forgot about was castor oil packs. That's a really gentle and detoxifying thing to bring in to do, periodically if you want to just help support things in a maintenance way. If you are dealing with something super complicated, I definitely recommend you reach out, schedule an initial consult, chat with someone. Every entry point's different, and I don't think educational information like this replaces clinical care, but I really care to start building people's toolboxes and educating them and doing what I can to help bridging these gaps and making connections so people understand how to nourish themselves day in and day out. So, as you move forward with your day, may you take a moment and just put your hands on your liver and say, I love you. Thank you for supporting me. I'm going to do better supporting you. I'm going to eat my vegetables. I'm going to drink my water. I'm going to go eat some burdock, which I've never tried before. Like, tell your liver these things and then go do them. That's your homework. If this episode left any questions about your liver, I want to hear about it. So go ahead and comment or reach out. My contact information is in the show notes. Next week will be another For Science segment, and I am bringing my partner on, hopefully, if he sticks with his week of experimentation, and we will be talking about lithium orotate, one of my favorite supplements for mood, anorexia, depression, anxiety, memory, and any other just mental imbalance that's going on. This is a great thing to know about. All right. Thank you for joining me on the Herbal Evolution. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next week.